Hey, Bianca here, and welcome to Teach Like Bianca. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some teacher interview tips. And I'm going to add some questions and possible answers that you might get in an interview. These tips are going to be great for in person, on Zoom, on Teams, over the phone, because I've had experience with all of those. And I also have experience with what to do when you are going into a multiple session interview. So you have the first part of the interview, the second interview, and possibly a third interview. That's usually when you get up into a leadership role or an administrator position, and you have to meet with various people who cannot be with you on the very first interview. So let me give you some background. The reason why I have such great experience with interviewing is because my very first year that I received my teaching certificate, I could not find a job. It's not like how it is now, where there seem to be a lot of teachers leaving the profession and there's going to be a lot of openings. So there's some possibility there into getting a job. But back then it was during the middle of the recession. I also lived in an area where everybody was fighting for the same jobs that were also in the same area. I actually obtained my teaching certificate like in December. And so I knew I was coming into the middle of a school year and already knew it was going to be hard for me to try to get a position. I ended up doing some long-term substitute teaching and tutoring until I was able to secure a teaching position. So let's go ahead and get started. Start out with giving tips, and then I'm going to go into some possible questions. The first thing is to get a teacher outfit. When I say a teacher outfit, I mean not just a regular, I'm wearing a suit, I have a blazer on that's black or dark. Wear something bright. My teacher outfit was khaki pants and a bright light blue shirt. And I wore that to every interview because I felt it's just comfortable. Being comfortable, wearing something bright because you want to look happy too. Remember, as teachers, we're always happy, right? So you want to look the part at least. The next tip is, one of the tips if you're brave enough to do, is if you're having trouble finding a job in your area of expertise, then you want to try to maybe, instead of looking for full-time jobs, look for part-time jobs. So anything that's less than a 1.0 FTE, which is the full-time equivalent, look for something that's less than that, and you'll probably find something in your area a lot quicker. I know it's hard to think, oh, I'm just out of college, I already don't have enough money, I need to pay my student loans, but taking that part-time position will definitely lead into a full-time position at some point. It might not be that next school year, it might be a couple years down the road, but there's also other ways that you can pick up money instead of thinking about, oh, I'm only working part-time in this teaching position. You can also do coaching, which pays really well, or tutoring, or pick up some other income that's happening there in the district or at the school. And one thing to know is that enrollment fluctuates. So as enrollment fluctuates, it can go up or go down. Your full-time position might happen even in that school year and you just don't know it. It might happen and it just needs to be approved. That funding needs to be approved for that position for you to go into full time, or it's going to happen that next school year. So be patient. My very first teaching job, I actually took a 0.6 and that led to a full-time position. Not at the building that I was in, but it did lead to one that next year in the district. The next one is to bring a lesson plan with you and bring something that has differentiation, that has great feedback to it, and maybe it was something that you did during an observation of a lesson, something that you can even show possible student quality feedback. When I say student quality feedback, maybe you have some papers that you'd made copies of that you showed how the final product of what that lesson outcome was. You need to bring a lesson that you can do just inside and out that is very comfortable and easy for you to deliver and explain. So just bring that lesson. You may not need to show it or even talk about it, but if you bring it, that's something that you can refer to and also gives a visual for everybody else, which goes into my next tip, is to make copies for everyone that's there. You may be in an interview room that has just 1 or 2 people. You may be in an interview room that has maybe 10 people. You want to always be prepared. So make sure that you bring copies for everybody and have multiple copies on hand so that you can pass those things out. Your resume, if you have a portfolio of work that discusses your teaching philosophy, your classroom management style, those lesson plans, you want to give everybody a copy so that they have a visual. It also is great that if you are on Zoom or are doing an interview on Microsoft Teams, that you could share it out to those people ahead of time as well. The next one is to have some questions ready. Have at least 1 to 3 questions ready. You don't want to dominate by asking too many questions, and you don't want to ask questions that you can find through the district website or even the building website. You want to ask questions that pertain to the building culture or about equity. Those are actually some buzzwords in the teaching community right now. So if you talk about how you want to add to the classroom culture of the school, or maybe you want to learn more and get into equity within your building or join the equity committee, those are some great things that you could talk about and add in to your questions. And you always want to ask questions. You never want to say, no, I don't have any questions or anything like that. One simple question is, when are you going to make a decision? Because you want them to know that you're just as eager for the job as they are looking for somebody. Asking any question that pertains to that position and what your role is and how you can help them is probably the best route for you to go when you're asking your questions. And one of my extra bonus tips is to know your craft. So I had a friend who sat in on a math interview who gave their interviewee a math problem and she wasn't able to do the math problem. So if you are applying to be a math teacher, you better make sure you know how to do the problems that you're given or that you're prepared for at the level that you want the job that you're in. So if you're applying to be an 8th grade math teacher, you need to know the 8th grade curriculum in and out and be prepared to do such. Another tip is to do your homework. Research the building, research the district, research the demographics, know what you're getting into before you are actually in the driver's seat and having your own classroom. You want to view the pictures of the school, the website. You also want to make sure that you can feel like you're part of a team. One thing that I always remember is when I walked into the building, a particular building, for example, I knew right away walking into that school place where I could see myself. So you want to know if you could see yourself there and that you could be part of that team, that you want to know that you could find somewhere where you can grow at. So always keep that in mind. One tip I do want to add that has helped tremendously is if you cannot or feel like that you're not ready to start teaching in your own classroom yet, go the route of substitute teaching. Because what you're going to do is you're going to hone your classroom management skills. You're able to get examples that you can use actually in interview questions. Also look for long-term subbing positions. You're going to be able to use and adapt to when you get inside of your interview process. You're going to have examples to share because they're going to ask a lot of examples, and you're also going to show them that you can manage a classroom. And sometimes that's all that it takes. You're able to manage a classroom, you can get your instruction across easily. And my final tip before I get into the Q&A is to send in a thank you card or a thank you letter. You can do that through email, or you could just walk it into the building. And I have done both. So make sure you just thank them for your time. It goes a long way. And if you're the only one that does that out of a group of people, then it makes a difference. So my next part is going through the question and answer. The first part of the questions that you're probably always going to get is tell me about yourself. And usually you know about yourself. You want to be able to do this without skipping or missing a beat. So you want to talk about yourself from not, oh, where was I born and I'm this old or anything like that. Start talking about the time that you decided to become a teacher. Might have been when you were a child and you just always wanted to be a teacher and maybe somebody inspired you, or maybe it was something, maybe it's your second career. Whatever it is, you want to be able to share that story of how you became a teacher and where it led you to right now. You also want to share something personal about yourself because you're a human and you want to be able to show that you're not just some rigid person that you just want a job and you're so nervous that you can't explain any of that. So if you have a family, pets, you like to travel, you like to read, share those things as well. And on top of that, another question that's going to be added on to that is, why did you become a teacher? So that can all mesh into one. I always talk about how things took a turn when I started substitute teaching just as a job. I want to make sure that you tie something into your personal philosophy of why you decided to become a teacher, and goes into what you plan on doing in the next 5 years. So the next question you're going to get almost all the time is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because they want to hire a teacher that's going to have some stability where they can grow within their school culture and their building. And it may not mean that you're going to stay in that building for the next 5 years, but you're going to start somewhere and have some growth. They want long-term teachers. They don't want someone that's in, that's out, that's going to be there a few years and think, oh, I'm going to go into admin. You could say that, but make sure that you tell them, down the road, that's something that you're planning on doing, even though that might really not be your idea, but tell them that down the road that you want to be able to possibly move up in education, that education's your career and that you plan on being there for the long term. The next question that you're probably going to get is, what can you contribute to the district or the school that you are applying to? The best way to answer this question is taking your top 3 strengths, and your 3 strengths need to come from what you can do in the classroom with your students. And the best way to apply these strengths is how you are using them as teaching strategies. For example, if your greatest strength is working with behavior students within your classroom, so maybe you have a group of students that is trouble everywhere in the building, you're able to work with these students to get them to work, to get them to focus, and you made a connection by building relationships with them. What you want to be able to do is try to find a personal story about a student that you had a great relationship with, that you made a connection with, and that there's a change that happened at some point with them from the beginning of the year or from the beginning of the time that you met them until the end. You want to show a progression of change, and you want to be able to let the interview panel know that you're able to create this change with a variety of students, and that you can also teach teachers in your building to make this change and adapt to this change as well, whatever it could be. The next one is, give an example of collaborations you have done in your most recent teaching experience. So once again, you want to go to an example. You want to go to something that you have done and somewhere that you have collaborated with other teachers, either in your student teaching practice or maybe in college, that you have done where you have made a positive outcome. A lot of times, if you're a part of the PLC, the professional learning community at your school, or maybe you're on a committee at your school, you want to show how you work together to create a final product. Maybe that was doing a professional development for your staff at your school, or maybe it was just creating something online that made something easier for everybody else. You want to make sure that everybody knows that you are always open to learning and continually learning and just improving your craft and allowing support when needed, even if it's just through collaboration. Collaborating doesn't just mean, oh, I'm working with somebody and calling it a day. It means that you are working together and you're working on something to grow and push forward for the future. And the final one that I have, and I do have a bonus one after this, is how will you incorporate technology in your teaching? This is a big one because technology, of course, has been our gateway for quite some time. You want to make sure that you are actually doing things to prepare your students to work for something in the future, which that is part of a mission statement for a school. If you read the mission statement, every school has a mission statement that is something like preparing students for a global future, which just means just getting them ready for their 13th year, whatever that could be. You want to make sure that you can refer back to a lesson plan that you have done, that a lesson that you have completed that has technology in it. So it could be a WebQuest, even though I'm kind of dating myself by saying WebQuest, are also using just things like Kahoot or Quizlet or Quizzes or Blooket, those types of things where you are partnering your lessons with technology. I'm going to list down below some possible technology things that you can use in a classroom, great for reading and writing skills and various enrichment activities. If you have any questions, I know this was pretty long, but please feel free to put them down below, and I will do my best to help you. I'll put all my links to everything for my blog post down below as well. So if you feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all, and I'll see you next time.